Chapter 20, The Great Gum Machine. Mr. Wonka led the party over to a gigantic machine that stood in the very centre of the inventing room. It was a mountain of gleaming metal that towered high above the children and their parents. At the top of it, there sprouted hundreds and hundreds of thin glass tubes, and the glass tubes all curled downwards and came together in a bunch and hung suspended over an enormous round tub as big as a bathtub. "Here we go," cried Mr. Wonka, and he pressed 3 different buttons on the side of the machine. A second later, a mighty rumbling sound came from inside it, and the whole machine began to shake most frighteningly, and steam began hissing out all over. And then suddenly, the watchers noticed that runny stuff was pouring down the insides of the hundreds of little glass tubes and squirting out into a great tub below. And in every single tube, the runny stuff was of a different colour, so that all the colours of the rainbow, and many others as well, came sloshing and splashing into the tub. It was a lovely sight. When the tub was nearly full, Mr. Wonka pressed another button, and immediately the runny stuff disappeared, and a fizzing, whirring noise took its place, and then a giant whizzer started whizzing around inside the enormous tub, mixing up all the different coloured liquids like an ice cream soda. Gradually, the mixture began to froth. It became frothier and frothier. It turned from blue to white to green to brown to yellow and then back to blue again. "Watch," said Mr. Wonka. Click went the machine and the whizzer stopped whizzing. And now there came a sort of sucking noise. Very quickly, all the blue frothy mixture in the huge basin was sucked back into the stomach of the machine. And there was a moment of silence. Then a few queer rumblings were heard, then silence again, and then suddenly the machine let out a monstrous mighty groan, and at the same moment a tiny drawer, no bigger than the drawer of a slot machine, popped out at the side of the machine, and in the drawer there lay something so small and thin and grey that everyone thought it must be a mistake. The thing looked like a little strip of grey cardboard. The children and their parents stared at the little grey strip lying in the drawer. "You mean that's all?" said Mike TV, disgusted. "That's all?" answered Mr. Wonka, gazing proudly at the result. "Do you know what it is?" There was a pause, and then suddenly Violet Beauregarde, the silly gum-chewing girl, let out a yell of excitement. "By gum! It's gum!" she shrieked. "It's a stick of chewing gum!" "Right you are," cried Mr. Wonka, slapping Violet hard on the back. "It's a stick of gum, and it's a stick of the most amazing and fabulous sensational gum in the world." There's a little picture of the machine there as well. Lost a page. Chapter 21. Goodbye, Violet. "This gum," Mr. Wonka went on, "is my latest, my greatest, and my most fascinating invention. It's a chewing gum meal. It's that tiny little strip of gum lying there. It's a whole 3-course dinner all by itself." "What sort of nonsense is this?" said one of the fathers. "My dear sir," cried Mr. Wonka, "when I start selling this gum in the shops, it will change everything. It will be the end of all the kitchens and all the cooking. There'll be no more shopping to do, no more buying of meat and groceries. There'll be no more knives and forks at meal times, no plates, no washing up, no rubbish, no mess, just a little strip of Wonka's magic chewing gum. And that's all you'll ever need at breakfast, lunch, and supper. This piece of gum I've just made happens to be tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie. But you can have almost anything you want." "What do you mean it's tomato soup, roast beef, and blueberry pie?" said Violet Beauregarde. "If you were to start chewing it," said Mr. Wonka, "then that is exactly what you would get on the menu. It's absolutely amazing. You can actually feel the food going down your throat and into your tummy, and you can taste it perfectly, and it fills you up. It satisfies you. It's terrific." "It's utterly impossible," said Veruca Salt. Just so long as it's gum, shouted Violet Beauregarde. Just so long as it's a piece of gum and I can chew it, then that's for me. And quickly, she took her own world record piece of chewing gum out of her mouth, stuck it behind her left ear. Come on, Mr. Wonka, she said, hand it over. This magic gum of yours, and we'll see if the thing works. Now, Violet, said Miss Beauregarde, her mother, let's do anything silly, Violet. I want the gum, Violet said obstinately. What's so silly? I would rather you didn't take it, Mr. Wonka told her gently. You see, I haven't got it quite right yet. There are still one or two things. Oh, to blazes with that, said Violet. And suddenly, before Mr. Wonka could stop her, she shot out her fat hand, grabbed a stick of gum out of the little drawer and popped it in her mouth. At once, her huge, well-trained jaws started chewing on it like a pair of tongs. Don't, said Mr. Wonka. Fabulous, shouted Violet. It's tomato soup. Oh, it's hot and creamy and delicious. I can feel it running down my throat. Stop, said Mr. Wonka. The gum isn't ready yet. It's not right. Oh, of course it's right, said Violet. It's working beautifully. Oh my, what lovely soup this is. Spit it out, said Mr. Wonka. Well, it's changing, shouted Violet, chewing and grinning both at the same time. Second course is coming up. It's roast beef. Oh, it's tender and juicy, and oh boy, what a flavour. The baked potato is marvellous too. Oh, it's got crispy skin and it's all filled with butter inside. But how interesting, Violet, said Miss Beauregarde. You are a clever girl. Keep chewing, baby, said Mr. Beauregarde. Keep on chewing. This is a great day for the Beauregardes. Our little girl is the first person in the world to have a chewing gum meal. Everybody was watching Violet Beauregarde as she stood there chewing this extraordinary gum. Little Charlie Bucket was staring at her absolutely spellbound, watching her huge rubbery lips as they pressed and unpressed with the chewing, and Grandpa Joe stood beside him, gaping at the girl. Mr. Wonka was wringing his hands and saying, No, it's ready. It's not ready for eating. It isn't right. You mustn't do it. Blueberry pie and cream, shouted Violet. Here it comes. Oh my, it's perfect. It's beautiful. It's exactly as though I'm swallowing it. It's as though I'm chewing and swallowing great big spoonfuls of the most marvellous blueberry pie in the world. Good heavens, girl, shrieked Mrs. Beauregarde, suddenly staring at Violet. What's happening to your nose? I'll be quiet, Mother, and let me finish, said Violet. It's turning blue, screamed Mrs. Beauregarde. Your nose is turning blue as a blueberry. Your mother's right, shouted Mr. Beauregarde. Your whole nose has gone purple. What do you mean? Said Violet, still chewing away. Your cheeks, screamed Miss Beauregarde, they're turning blue as well. So is your chin. Your whole face is turning blue. Spit the gum out at once, ordered Mr. Beauregarde. Mercy save us, yelled Mrs. Beauregarde. The girl's going purple and blue all over. Even her hair is changing colour. Violet, you're turning violet, Violet. What is happening to you? I told you I hadn't quite got it right, sighed Mr. Wonka, shaking his head sadly. I'll say you haven't, cried Miss Beauregarde. Just look at the girl now. Everybody was staring at Violet. What a terrible, peculiar sight she was. Her face and hands and legs and neck, in fact, the skin all over her body, as well as a great big mop of curly hair, returned a brilliant purplish blue, the colour of blueberry juice. It always goes wrong when we come to dessert, sighed Mr. Wonka. It's the blueberry pie that does it, but I'll get it right one day. You wait and see. Violet, screamed Miss Beauregarde, you're swelling up. I feel sick, Violet said. You're swelling up, screamed Mrs. Beauregarde again. Ooh, I feel most peculiar, gasped Violet. Not surprised, said Mr. Beauregarde. Good heavens, girl, screeched Miss Beauregarde. You're blowing up like a balloon. Like a blueberry, said Mr. Wonka. Call a doctor, shouted Mr. Beauregarde. Prick her with a pin, said one of the other fathers. Save her, cried Miss Beauregarde, wringing her hands. But there was no saving her now. Her body was swelling up and changing shape at such a rate that within a minute it had turned into nothing less than an enormous round blue ball, a gigantic blueberry in fact, and all that remained of Violet Beauregarde herself was a tiny pair of legs, a tiny pair of arms, sticking out of the great round fruit, and a little head on top. Always happens like that, sighed Mr. Wonka. I've tried it 20 times in the testing room on 20 Oompa Loompas, and every one of them finished up a blueberry. It's most annoying. I just can't understand it. But I don't want a blueberry for a daughter, yelled Miss Beauregard. Put her back to what she was this instant. Mr. Wonka clicked his fingers and 10 Oompa Loompas appeared immediately at his side. Roll Miss Beauregard into the boat, he said to them. Take her along to the juicing room at once. The juicing room? Cried Miss Beauregard. What are you going to do to her there? Squeeze her, said Mr. Wonka. We've got to squeeze the juice out of her immediately. After that, we'll just have to see how she comes out. But don't worry, Mrs. Beauregard. We'll get her repaired, if it's the last thing we do. I'm sorry about it all. I really am. Already, the 10 Oompa Loompas were rolling the enormous blueberry across the floor of the inventing room towards the door that led to the chocolate river where the boat was waiting. There's a picture there. Mr. and Mrs. Beauregard hurried after them. The rest of the party, including little Charlie Bucket and Grandpa Joe, stood absolutely still and watched them go. Listen, whispered Charlie. Listen, Grandpa. The Oompa Loompas in the boat outside are starting to sing. The voices, 100 of them singing together, came loud and clear into the room. Dear friends, we surely all agree there's almost nothing worse to see than some repulsive little bum who always chewing gum. It's very near as bad as those who sit around and pick their nose. So please believe us when we say that chewing gum will never pay. The sticky habit's bound to send the chewer to a sticky end. Did any of you ever know a person called Miss Bigelow? The dreadful woman saw no wrong in chewing all day long. She chewed while bathing in the tub. She chewed while dancing at her club. She chewed in church and on the bus. It really was quite ludicrous. And when she couldn't find her gum, she'd chew up linoleum or anything that happened near, a pair of boots, the postman's ear, or other people's underclothes. And once she chewed her boyfriend's nose. She went on chewing till at last her chewing muscles grew so vast that from her face her giant chin stuck out like a violin. For years and years she chewed away, consuming 50 bits a day, until one summer eve, alas, a horrid business came to pass. Miss Bigelow went late to bed. For half an hour she lay and read, chewing and chewing all the while, like some great clockwork crocodile. At last she put her gum away upon a special little tray, and settled back and went to sleep. She managed this by counting sheep. But now, how strange, although she slept, those massive jaws of hers still kept on chewing through the night, even with nothing there to bite. They were, you see, in such a groove, they positively had to move. And very grim it was to hear, in pitchy darkness, loud and clear, this sleeping woman's great big trap, opening and shutting, snap, 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 faster and faster, chop, chop, chop. The noise went on, it wouldn't stop, until at last her jaws decide to pause and then open extra wide. And with the most tremendous chew, they bit the lady's tongue in two. Thereafter, just from chewing gum, Miss Bigelow was always dumb, and spent her life shut up in some disgusting sanitarium. And that is why we'll try so hard to save Miss Violet Beauregard from suffering an equal fate. She's still quite young. It's not too late, provided she survives the cure. We hope she does. We can't be sure. And that was chapter 21. Chapter 22, Along the Corridor, we'll read that tomorrow.